Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz. This is Ron's Big Shot Breakdown. We're going to go over 5 college basketball games for Wednesday, December 13th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your college basketball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 bank shop best bet, as well as my all-access season pass in college hoops, you can find those in the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Wednesday in college basketball. First up, we see Incarnate Word taking on Rice. This one's going to be 12:15 Eastern, so an early afternoon game. It's going to be on ESPN+. Now, we took Incarnate Word plus the points against Jacksonville State back on November 22nd. That was an outright W at the buzzer for Incarnate Word by 1 point, 67-66. But since that win, Incarnate Word has lost 4 straight. They lost the rematch to Jacksonville State. They lost to 2 teams outside the top 300 in KenPom, UTSA, and Bethune-Cookman. And then lost their most recent game to Northern Arizona, a home game, 76-75, so a 1-point loss there. And now they go on the road where they have not fared too well this year. And overall, Incarnate Word's played a really weak schedule. They played a game against Texas at the beginning of the year, but since then, not a lot of tough matchups, and it gives them the 303, the 303rd ranked strength of schedule in Division I hoops. While Rice, who is also 3-6 this season, both of these teams 3-6 straight up, they have played a much tougher schedule. They're 22nd in strength of schedule this year. They played at Texas as well, but they added games at neutral sites against Indiana State, New Mexico, and UC Irvine, 3 teams in the top 100 in KenPom. Played a home game against the Ivy League's Harvard, who could be the best team or one of the best teams in the Ivy League this year. And then their most recent game, of course, at Houston, number 1 team in KenPom, in their most recent game on December 6th. But Rice has a lot of time off in between that game against Houston and this one. They have a good spot here against an inferior opponent to earn a feel-good blowout win at home. By the way, Rice has played 4 home games this year and is 3-1 straight up in those home games, and that includes the 20-point victory over Tennessee Martin and a 9-point win over Houston Christian. Incarnate Word's defense on the road's not been, in general, it hasn't been great, but especially on the road, when you look at the points per game given up, 88, 85, 90, and 96 in the 4 road games. Got to add the 81 points to Arkansas Pine Bluff as well. So the 5 true road games for Incarnate Word, they've given up 80-plus points. I think Rice scores in the 80s, maybe 90s in this game, and it should be enough for a cover at home. Give me the Owls. I'll lay the points. Next up, we see Appalachian State taking on Queens University. This one's going to be a 7 p.m. Eastern start time. It's going to be on ESPN+. Now, we took the points with Appalachian State against Auburn back on December 3rd. That was an outright W, outright upset for Appalachian at home, 69-64 the final score. And Appalachian State is 7-2 this season. However, those 2 losses were there are only 2 true road games against Northern Illinois and Oregon State. This, of course, going to be the 3rd true road game of the season. The Mountaineers have played really well, but I just don't know if I can trust them laying this pretty sizable number on the road against a Queens team that I do think is better than its current record and is going to improve as the season goes along. And we've already seen that in recent games where, Queens got off to an 0-2 start, but is now, 6-5, an above 500 record, and has won 3 of its last 4 games. That includes a nice W over Gardner-Webb, a top 200 team in KenPom, and that was an 83-80 final score. Queens takes care of the basketball. They're a pretty good offensive rebounding team. They're also defending the perimeter really well, which is really important against Appalachian State, which is a solid 3-point shooting team. But beyond that, they get about 30% of their points from the perimeter, so which is more than the average team in college basketball. And we saw in that Auburn game, Appalachian State was 47% from the 3-point line, which is a big reason why they won that game outright. Auburn was only 11%. So I do think that there's value on Queens. I think there could be honestly value fading Appalachian State after that big upset win. They haven't played a Division I team since that game. They played a subdivision team and took care of business. But I think in their first line game since that Auburn defeat or Auburn victory, there's value fading the Mountaineers. So give me Queens here. I'll take the points. Next up, we see Chicago State taking on Northwestern. This one's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern on the Big Ten Network. Now, I know this is not going to be the most popular play, and it's probably a game where you say viewer discretion is advised, as this is a pretty ugly underdog, but I like Chicago State in this ball game. I just think Northwestern is quite a bit overvalued because of their most recent win streak. I mean, they're on a 3-game straight up and against the numbers win streak where they took care of business against Northern Illinois. They upset Purdue at home on a 92-88 overtime win, a huge win for Northwestern. And then they also took care of business against Detroit Mercy in a 32-point blowout win. But now, a huge favorite in this game against a regional rival and a team and a program that I think is improving, not only, this season in general, but as the season's gone along. We saw Chicago State not too long ago, back on December 3rd, beat Stetson 77-54. I know it's not a great Hatters team, but it's a team that's got a pretty good offense, and they get held to 54 points. I mean, Stetson outright upset UCF earlier in the season. So, it's a decent Stetson team, and it was Chicago State beating them by 23 points. Really impressive stuff. Chicago State does a really good job at defending the perimeter, where they're top 100 in three-point defense. Northwestern, top 100 in three-point offense. We just saw them against Detroit Mercy nail 10 of 24 from three, 42%. It's important that the Bobcats take care of the perimeter in this game, and I think they will. And Northwestern does a really good job of taking care of the basketball with it, but they may be a little bit more uncomfortable than usual, as Chicago State's really good at forcing turnovers. They're top 20 in turnover percentage defensively. The offense, I do think, has been inconsistent. Last game only 50 points scored. Like I said, the previous game against Stetson, 77 points in that blowout win. But they do a really good job of getting to the free throw line. That's been a problem for Northwestern defensively. They are taking quite a few fouls, so I do think Chicago State will have a good amount of points at the free throw line in this ballgame. They get over 23% of their points from the charity stripe. That's 44th in the country in free throw point distribution. So I think Chicago State competes in this game. I still think Northwestern wins it pretty comfortably, but this is just way too many points to be laying. Give me Chicago State plus the points. Next up, we see UAB taking on Alabama A&M. This one's also going to be 8 p.m. Eastern. Now, UAB last year, 29-10 record. They went all the way to the NIT championship game. Really fun team to watch. They scored a ton of points, and just an experienced team. This season, they were top 100 in KenPom going into the year, but they're 4-5 this year. They're in a 3-game losing streak. They lost to McNeese, Southern Miss, and Arkansas State, teams that you would expect UAB to beat most seasons. They gave up 80-plus points in all those games, and their most recent game against Arkansas State lost by 19, 87-68 the final score. While I do think UAB is better than its current record, I think the defense is better than the current numbers we see, and we're going to find value on UAB later on this season. This is just not one of those spots. I don't feel comfortable laying this many points on the road with the UAB defense that's just not playing well, and the offense is also not doing enough to get the job done. I mean, only 68 points against Arkansas State, only 60 against McNeese. Alabama A&M, they're not having a great season so far. They're 1-8. They have one win against a Division I team, and it may not be a great year record-wise overall for Alabama A&M, but they played a really tough schedule, top 100 in strength of schedule this year in non-conference play. And they don't get to host teams like UAB very often. And they don't really get to host a lot of non-conference games in general. The one home game that they played in non-conference play was that game against Tennessee State in the outright overtime victory. So Alabama A&M, I expect them to be way up for this ball game. And fundamentally, there's some things to like about Alabama A&M. They force a lot of turnovers. They get to the free throw line like nobody's business. And actually, they are number one in the country in terms of teams that are reliant on the free throws in their scoring and point distribution. Number one in the country. They get 30% of their points from the free throw line. And UAB, we just saw them give up like 29 free throws to Southern Miss in that loss a couple games ago. I think that could be a big problem for Alabama or for UAB in terms of covering this number and potentially winning this game outright. I'm going to take those points with Alabama A&M in a regional rivalry game. Like I said, the Bulldogs don't get to host UAB very often, or teams like it. So give me the points here with Alabama A&M. And the final game we're to talk about for Wednesday's card in college basketball, it's going to be Arkansas State and Louisville. This one's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern as well. It's going to be on the ACC network. Now, we just talked about the blowout win for Arkansas State against UAB in its most recent game. It was an 87-68 final score at home. That win snapped a 3-game losing streak for the Red Wolves. But, Arkansas State, while, it was a solid win against UAB, when we've seen them on the road this year, they have not fared too well. In fact, they've lost all their road games. Their 3 victories this season, 2 of those were at home, and the other one was at a neutral site against UT Rio Grande Valley. Not a great team there. On the road, the results haven't really been pretty. I mean, we saw them lose 105-76 to open the season at Wisconsin. Lost by 6 to not a very good Bowling Green team. Lost to Iowa by 14, not too shabby there, but lost by double digits against Little Rock on the road, and then by 24 in an 89-65 final score against Alabama. Louisville's no juggernaut, that's for sure. Last season was a disappointment. This season not been great. 4-5. They haven't really played the toughest of schedules because while they have played some decent teams, they played by neutral sites or at home. They played one tough true road game against Virginia Tech, lost that game by 7, but they were pretty competitive in that ball game. They covered the number in the end, and I think that at home here, it's a pretty good spot for Louisville's offense to get going. That this season they've struggled to shoot the ball. They're ranked 293rd in effective field goal percentage, 321st in three-point shooting percentage, but Arkansas State's defense, not great, not very aggressive. They take quite a few fouls, and Louisville does a pretty good job of getting to the free throw line. They're also a really good free throw shooting team. So I do think, we talked about point distribution and teams relying on the free throws. Louisville, the 7th most, point percentage to free throws this year. 26.4% of their points come from the charity stripe, and that could be a problem for Arkansas State. It takes a lot of fouls. So give me Louisville in this spot. I like them at home. I don't love Arkansas State as a road team this season, especially as this could be a letdown spot after that upset win over UAB. Give me Louisville. I'll lay the points. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday in college basketball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Don't forget to put your college basketball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.